Hey everybody, welcome to another video review. We're going to continue our series on the Master Replicas Darth Vader lightsaber collection. We've done a very in-depth review on Star Wars Episode 4 New Hope, Vader, and then continued with the Episode 5 Empire Strikes Back lightsaber. And of course I did the Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith 3 years ago. Maybe I'll go back to revisit that, maybe redo the review. I don't know. I tend not to do that, but sometimes enough time has passed. Maybe I'll go back and revisit that. But today we're going to sort of finish things off by talking about Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. So here is the signature edition, Darth Vader lightsaber. There's a lot to talk about actually with this lightsaber. So let's see how long this review is. I don't think it'll be quite as long as the marathon 1 hour, 15 plus minute one for A New Hope. But this does actually have a little bit more history and a little bit more interesting things about it than actually the Empire Strikes Back lightsaber, even though that lightsaber is my favorite. So what to do? Well, we can go through kind of a very similar fashion as the other sabers. I'll talk a little bit about my memory of Return of the Jedi. So leaving off from my last review, I talked about my experience with Empire Strikes Back as a 5-year-old. Of course, you get older, you start learning a little bit more, and then you discover, of course, oh my God, there was a whole movie before Empire Strikes Back. So I wound up going there to watch that, rewatching Empire, having a little bit more understanding, getting a little bit older. When you're like a kid, 3 years is a really, really big difference. And so how I approached or how I appreciated Empire Strikes Back as an 8-year-old or 9-year-old, very different than as a 4.5 to 5-year-old. So suffice to say that when 1983 rolled around, Return of the Jedi was being released, I was like, just frothing at the bit. I was just so excited because remember back in those days, there wasn't any social media. There was, I don't think there was, 1983, was there even any internet? Very rudimentary, crude internet. And so all you had to go on was a couple of TV commercials. Back then we were pretty poor. Our TV, there wasn't much TV to watch. I wasn't allowed to watch too much TV. And so, just after waiting all these years and trying to figure out like what happened to Han and how this is all going to end. So I dragged my mom, God bless her, to see the movie, I think like opening weekend or something. It was very, very early on. And I still remember, I lived in San Francisco and we watched it at the Coronet movie theater. It just shows you how much of an impact that movie made on me when like literally over 40 years later, I still remember the stupid movie theater on Gary Avenue or Gary Street or whatever, the Coronet, and it was not a multiplex. Back in those days, multiplexes were very rare. It was literally one movie theater that showed one movie, and that movie was Return of the Jedi. And I remember, going there and standing in line with my mom. We walk in, we watch the movie. I said in my last video, and I say it again, it was like the best movie experience of my life right there. I mean, back then, bar none, the greatest movie going experience of my life. And probably because, I was only a kid. Even now, like, I'm like an adult man about to hit 50 in a couple years. And I've seen a lot of movies in my time since then, but it's still probably one of the top 3 movie-going experiences of my life, even after all these decades, just because of the impact, you have on an 8-year-old mind and heart. And I've seen Infinity War, I've seen Endgame, I've seen Avatar, Way of Water. I've seen a lot of like amazing movies in a packed theater with an interactive crowd, but the reason that movie was so amazing was because it was Star Wars, and because at the moment when Darth Vader got up and he grabbed the Emperor and he threw him down that shaft to save Luke, I will never, ever, my entire life, ever forget what happened. And it's something that's never happened since. In a movie theater of just regular folks, regular people, there was not only a cheer, like a roar from the crowd when that happened. People actually stood up, like en masse. They actually got up out of their seats, clapping and screaming, like the whole theater. I mean, sorry, that didn't happen in Avengers Endgame, even when, Cap said Avengers Assemble. That didn't happen, in any movie theater going experience that I went to, not even Lord of the Rings, in Return of the King, when, Aragorn bowed or when the Rohirrim charged. I mean, there were cheers, there were screams, but the whole audience, hundreds of people, standing ovation, hasn't happened in my movie going experience. I've been to premieres. I mean, maybe it happens at the Cannes Film Festival, or I don't know, maybe on premiere night with your friends and family when these Hollywood stars are going. Maybe, I mean, I've never been part of those, but it was an indelible memory that I'll never forget. It was so amazing to see that happen. And that's about the closest that I've ever come to like true movie magic. And so that's my enduring memory of Return of the Jedi, and the reaction, the redemption of Vader brought out of the audience. So that's my memory of the movie. And, that's kind of the emotional sort of reaction, that I've always had with the original Star Wars trilogy. So I did buy this on eBay, and it supposedly came with everything. Back then I didn't care quite as much, but it seemed beautiful shape, pristine shape. Let's take a look at this again. It's been about 8 years. I bought the Empire Strikes Back and the Return of the Jedi Signature Edition lightsabers pretty close to each other. It was just at a time when they were out there. I saw some opportunities and I just went for it. You know what I mean? And again, the $2,000 price tag was what stopped me from finishing up with, the New Hope dual signature. And at the time, I foolishly thought, maybe if I wait it out, there'll be, it'll die down, right? It'll die down, and maybe the price will drop. So, you win some, you lose some. Obviously, that was far from what happened with these master replicas pieces. But yeah, so because I bought this very close to Empire Strikes Back, it has been, again, about 8 to 9 years since I've even opened the acrylic. It's been resting on the mantelpiece of my fireplace next to, the other lightsabers for the better part of a decade. So I got it on eBay. I don't remember the exact price tag. It was cheaper, actually, than Empire Strikes Back because, again, a Vader signature edition from Empire, it was, at the time, that was like sort of almost like the pinnacle, right? of like lightsaber collectibles. Like if you wanted one, you wanted Vader's Empire lightsaber. But I got it, and I remember seeing the pictures on eBay, and I was thinking, wow, that's like a really, really neat looking lightsaber. At the time, I didn't know as much about the lightsabers as I do now, obviously. But I was like, wow, that looks really different because, from my previous reviews, and for those of you who are lightsaber or Vader lightsaber aficionados, you'll know that there's really not a huge difference between the New Hope Vader and the Empire Strikes Back Vader. There's minute differences, but not huge. But this was like very different. So I went ahead, I got it, and, let's take our time and look at it a little bit closer. So the first part, I actually did take the trouble to dig up the Return of the Jedi paperwork. And I won't bore you with the details, but it certainly was not easy. So all of this stuff is actually in here. Now, if you look at it, this lightsaber was released a little bit later on, quite a bit later on, actually. It was in 2006 that this was released. And so a full 3 years after Empire Strikes Back and 4 years after A New Hope, and there's a few differences. In terms of the envelope, you can see that instead of having like a nice envelope that, you just fold, this envelope actually opens up like this. So that's kind of weird, but okay. So it's supposed to actually do this, okay? And within this, you have a bag, and in the bag are the following things. So let's go through this. So here you have, of course, their registration card, like before. You have that with every one of their products. You have their collector's edition limited warranty, okay? They actually at some point started including a like a black, like mirror wipe, microfiber, not a mirror wipe, sorry, that was the wrong word, choice of words. They actually had a microfiber cloth included to polish your collectible. Unused, of course, but that was included now. There was an advertisement. How cool is this? So I guess back in 2006, they were about to come out with their, you know, their magnificent, I don't even know what words to use, the creme de la creme, the piece de resistance, you know, the Millennium Falcon Studio Scale. Look at this advertisement, coming to your galaxy this winter, a Star Wars Studio Scale. Oh my God, look at that. That is insane. Master Replicas presents Han Solo's Millennium Falcon, the fastest hunk of junk in the galaxy, a studio scale replica as big as the cosmos and slightly more than 12 parsecs ahead of its time. Now you can own the most famous Corellian freighter of them all, fair and square. That's pretty badass. I mean, this is like a little time capsule, man, right? What is it, 17 years ago? And then look at the little cute, cringy little things here. What the critics are saying, what a piece of junk, Luke Skywalker farm boy. She may not look like much, but she's got where it counts. I mean, they're leaning in hard on the nostalgia, right? You got Han Solo, scoundrel, farm boy. You came here in that thing, you're braver than I thought. Leia, Organa princess, she's the fastest hunk of junk in the galaxy. Lando Calrissian, fellow scoundrel. This is hilarious. Would it help if I got out and pushed? Still a princess. Or Chewbacca walking carpet. This is hilarious. So nice blast from the past, a little hint of things to come. And then finally, of course, we have the certificate of authenticity, which is kind of interesting because here there really wasn't a certificate of authenticity. You have this awesome picture of Darth Vader, and then here it shows you, and I'll go really slow, it shows you that this is the Return of the Jedi signature edition. And of course it tells you, you know, what went into the prop. I'll go over some of that a little bit later on, but they do tell you here, for instance, that they use a new lightsaber, Episode 6. It was unavailable. The resourceful prop department took a similar looking Luke Skywalker stunt lightsaber from Star Wars Episode 5, and then they added a collar and painted the top of it to recreate the distinctive black emitter shroud. And then the stunt blade was cut down, leaving a protruding rod, and the midband was altered to recreate the black activator panel. So there you have it here. And then if you open it, you see, I mean, I guess this is their version of the certificate. I mean, like the previous ones had like the president of like Lucasfilm marketing or something sign it, but they didn't do that. They just had this, but at least they still gave us the picture of David Prowse, October 19th, 2006, signing the plaques with a picture of him dueling Luke. So it's pretty cool. I mean, it would have been nice to have the signature like the past two times, but again, you're gonna see differences in what they did as time passed, both for the good and maybe for the not so good. So I really like the fact that they included a microfiber cloth to polish your lightsaber, but they changed this certificate of authenticity slightly. So if any of you guys out there have a Return of the Jedi signature edition Vader lightsaber and you feel like I'm missing some paperwork, whatever, I would love it if you could tell me. But I really do think that this is it. This is all of the paperwork. So there you have it. Now let's take a look at the lightsaber itself. Just like most of them, this is oriented, the shroud or the emitter is oriented, is facing toward the left, unlike Empire, which was facing to the right. You can immediately see that the signature plaque is now quite a bit different from the episode 4 and 5 versions. Here it sits in its display case with the acrylic cover and the mirror base. And I'm just going to slowly spin it around so you can see what it looks like from all over. You can see the acrylic legs. Again, placed very, very far apart. The Star Wars A New Hope lightsaber is the only one that's placed very, very narrowly. So this is way spread out. Plenty of space for you to put the signature plaque. So here you go. One of the interesting things is that the acrylic, instead of being put inside the borders of the mirror base, is now on the outside. So that is a little bit different as well. Let's put that aside. By the way, the cover, the acrylic cover, is also quite a bit shorter than the other ones. I don't know if you can see it from here, but it's definitely not quite as tall. And the reason that's not quite as tall is because the signature plaque is quite a bit lower profile as well. So again, I need to dust the mirror base a little bit, but you know, it's the mirror base, not much more to it than that. And then you can see that the acrylic cover actually goes around. It's now actually beveled versus the Empire and New Hope versions where it actually sits in the recess. So just, you know, small little things that they changed. Let's look at the actual signature plaque. So this is Dave Prowse. I have to look at the New Hope signature plaque. Did he sign it Dave or did he sign it David Prowse? I don't know, but here at least he signed it Dave Prowse. This is signature edition 396 of 500. You have the Master Replicas and Lucasfilm logos, and then you see here clearly Star Wars Episode 6 Return of the Jedi, Darth Vader lightsaber. I believe that this plaque was shipped separately, and then you basically stuck it onto this. And yeah, I can definitely tell because it's moving back and forth. So you do stick it on. There's no controversy about exactly how you're supposed to put it on. This base is plastic, okay? And again, this doesn't really feel like metal to me at all. I mean, in fact, when I feel it, this doesn't feel like aluminum or steel or anything. It feels kind of like plastic, to be honest with you. And so, of course, the advantage is that it's not going to tarnish. But the disadvantage is, I got to be honest, it does feel a little bit cheaper, okay? Because the material does feel cheaper. And so when you're looking at just plastic, it does feel, again, like they cut a few corners here. In general, it didn't feel to me like they went all out in some respects, right? So this is a nice signature plaque, and this is actually the standard for many of their lightsabers later on down the line. Again, I think that only the Vader dual signature, the Empire Strikes Back, the Darth Maul, the Luke Empire Strikes Back, and the Count Dooku, I think those were the only 5 that actually went with the large, almost like square, like metal plaques, which had the problem with tarnish. I think all of the further signatures were all like this type of, plastic, which again, I mean, it looks really nice. It definitely stands the test of time. You don't have to worry about polishing or any of that stuff, but it does feel and look a little bit, cheaper than those original sets. So there you go. And of course, it is a lot rarer. This is number 396 of 500. So they only made 500 of these signature editions. And as time went on, Master Replicas, maybe because of the margin, they definitely made or had less of these replicas. The runs were a little bit shorter. Okay, so let's take a look at the lightsaber. I'm going to lift it up again for the first time in about almost 10 years. And you can see sort of how the mirror base, goes. I'll lift it up. That's the mirror right there. You can see my phone and me. And then again, you can see the bevel. So we're gonna push this back a little bit so we can appreciate this this lightsaber, see what this is all about. So now we have sort of a difference between the lore of the movie and the reality of the prop, right? And so I think this is a reasonable time as I'm just sort of slowly showing off all of this beautiful detail. This is a good time to enter into a little bit of a discussion about, I guess, what authentic prop replica means and what different collectors want from that. So there are some collectors who obviously want the prop as it was, used in the filming of the movie. They're purists, and if a prop looks like crap or if it's really, really dirty or scratched, they want that. They want that, they want every detail of that if they could. Me, I'm not quite that, I'm not in that camp. And the main reason is because I realized that, as part of filming, these crews are not thinking about like collectors and Star Wars nerds and legacy and authenticity. They're trying to get a job done. They're trying to make a movie, right, guys? And sometimes, desperate times call for desperate measures. They're just trying to get, things done. And a lot of times the reality of the prop, especially in modern movies where you have so much post-production and special effects work after the fact, a lot of the real prop just looks really, really crude and disappointing, And so I'm always one where if you're going to give me a prop replica, especially when I'm going to pay, hundreds or thousands of dollars for, I kind of want an idealized version of that prop. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want it to be scratched to hell and beaten up and dented and all. I don't really want that. I kind of want, the actual lightsaber of Darth Vader from Return of the Jedi in my hand. And so the reason I say that is because when the pictures of this lightsaber first came out, there was a lot of complaints, man, from the fans, like the rebelscum.com, the RPF, and all these various fan sites. They were talking about how ugly this lightsaber looked compared to the original Vader ones from New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. And I never understood that because to me, even though the Empire Strikes Back lightsaber, of course, will be my favorite just because I have so much emotional sort of connection to the movie, I think this is a really badass looking lightsaber. I just love the detail of it, and I just love the sort of the look that's so unique. It's just so unique compared to the other types of lightsabers. You know what I'm saying? It just got, it's got all these little screws in here. That looks like you can open it with an Allen, like an Allen wrench or an Allen screw, whatever you want to call it. The grips, the little tiny holes. I don't know, it just speaks to me. The design is probably it's close, man. I was going to say second favorite behind Revenge. I think like Revenge of the Sith, I've gone on record saying that his lightsaber from Revenge of the Sith was like my favorite because it just feels so like heavy and luxurious, and it's got just so much weight and solidity to it, and it just looks so good. But honestly, this is close. I mean, I would say that maybe it's 1A, 1B. Maybe on a different day, I would say this is my favorite design. I just really like the design. And I've never really understood, like all this talk about ugly light. Like, what is an ugly lightsaber? They're all just fantasy and imagination. But this looks really, really like, kind of, I don't know, like industrial almost. So I really, really like this. But, if we want to start, so look at here, the emitter, right? So if you really want to get into it, This is what I found through my research. So basically, in a nutshell, when they were making Return of the Jedi, they couldn't find the lightsaber from Empire Strikes Back for Darth Vader. And apparently that was because a lot of props were like disappearing off the set. People were taking them home. They wanted a little piece of history because everybody felt that, the trilogy would be over, right, with the third movie. So everybody was just wanted to take home a little piece of history with them. And I guess the Empire Strikes Back Darth Vader lightsaber was one of those that just sort of vanished or something. I don't know why they didn't just make another one or whatever. I mean, surely by 1983, they had enough money to do that. But for whatever reason, that wasn't done. And so because they didn't have the Empire Strikes Back's lightsaber, they decided to jury rig another lightsaber to kind of, take its place. Now, to be fair, in Return of the Jedi, you don't see Vader walking around with his lightsaber very often. I think there's a few brief scenes where you do see him, but he's not in it nearly as much as A New Hope or Empire. And in any case, what they decided to do was they decided to use a Luke Skywalker lightsaber, a stunt lightsaber from Empire Strikes Back, and then they decided to modify it to look like the Vader lightsaber, and that is the reason for so many differences. So basically, if you saw my other reviews, or if you just know your Vader lightsabers, you'll know that the original was made from an MPP flash gun. Okay, it's an MPP, whereas the Luke Skywalker lightsaber was made from another type of flash gun called a Gray Flex. A Gray Flex. And so the reason this is so different is because they took the Luke Skywalker lightsaber, it started off as a Gray Flex. And then they basically, cut things flush with the handle, and they just modified it to look different. So these are all of the sort of the finer details of how they had to modify Luke's Gray Flex handle to make it look more like a Vader lightsaber. And if you can see, you can actually begin to start seeing some of the similarities, right, with that with actual Luke lightsaber versus a Vader one. So normally, the MPPs have a very distinctive shroud, so they didn't have that. So they basically had to machine and add their own custom black, like more rectangular shroud, along with this, with the D-ring. All of this is completely new. They had to add it on to the tip of the Empire Strikes Back Luke Skywalker lightsaber to make it look like Vader's. And so that's why you don't see that very classic shroud that you would see from the MPP, base for the real lightsaber. They actually had because it was a stunt lightsaber, there was this long stick because they used it right for the lightsaber duels. And so they actually had to cut the stick off here, and that's why you have this post. This is very accurate to the original prop. And so, once again, if I actually show you this view right here, you can see the screw and the nut on the inside from here, but you can see that there actually isn't a real emitter. This is all solid black. And this is in direct contrast, obviously, to the New Hope and Empire Strikes Back, where you can actually see the interior of the flash gun tube. So you don't see it here at all, right? So they did that. They added their own distinctive D-ring, the thumb screw right here. There's no more ports, obviously, because again, this is a Gray Flex, not an MPP. And so now you have these, kind of Allen screws, right? And then they added all of this to, again, just give it some more distinctive, detail. And for the clasp, they did the same thing. And up here, there's no bubble strip anymore. They just put 2 screws in here. And they gave this sort of little distinctive sidebar. This was all fabricated and added on to the Gray Flex handle to give it more, a little bit more distinction. And then they put in these T-track grips, and they put another ring at the bottom here, to hang from the belt. And so as you can see, I'm going to show you the end of this. Here, this is 2006 Master Replicas Inc. You can clearly see the signature edition engraved over here. And then on the other side, you can see 2006 Lucasfilm Ltd. So this for sure is the signature version. And there's all sorts of these little tiny details. So take a look at this. This is actually like a little tiny circular, perfectly circular hole in the clasp, and through which you can see the actual aluminum finished tube. And then if you rotate very closely, you can see little tiny holes, like right here, right? These 2 holes you can see right here, also like here and here, that's also there. I tend to think that these are not defects. I mean, again, this is not damage to the lightsaber or anything like that. They're too perfect. And so again, it kind of shows you, in high detail, how they actually jury-rigged this Vader lightsaber from a Luke Skywalker Jedi stunt prop. So it's pretty cool. They showed all of this stuff. And again, the reason I kind of like it is because it's so different. And now I realize why it looks so different when I did the research, is because it's essentially, if you want to use your imagination a little bit, it's essentially like the dark twin of Luke Skywalker's lightsaber, right? It would be like his lightsaber if it was created by an evil Sith Lord. And at least that's what my imagination says. It's very mechanical, very industrial. So that's why, it really appeals, its style really appeals to my sensibilities. And you can kind of see all of this stuff, so there's no bubble strip, way more screws. I really particularly like these screws here that you can only take out with an Allen wrench. You can see there's a whole bunch of these, here. Take a look here. There's a little tiny knob right there. So, look at this, very nice detail. A whole bunch of these little tiny knobs sticking out, the thumb screw. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know why I like it so much. Probably just because, again, it just really appeals to me. Have all of this, little things in there. So there you have it. This is the Return of the Jedi, Darth Vader signature edition lightsaber. And a huge departure, from the previous 2 versions because of, the history that I shared with you. Again, the Empire Strikes Back just seemed to be a slightly more refined version of the New Hope version, but this is like a completely different thing, if you were to look really, really closely. So I'm gonna turn it around so you can see it from this angle. Especially these guys right here. Here you go. There's that knob. There's a little tiny port right here, actually. Six of these screws, if you want to count them. Some of this. So there you have it. And then just sort of holding it like that. I can definitely tell that David Prowse's hands are way bigger than mine. This feels a little bit uncomfortable, like I can barely get my hands around it, but I'm sure that you know, Mr. Prowse takes this bad boy that it would fit very snugly in his palm, in the palm of his hand. All right, let's get this thing back. I'm gonna very gently put this back on. There's only one way to do it correctly. Let's see if I do it right. I believe that's how it's supposed to be done. And we'll put the signature plaque. As you can see, it's perfectly long enough to fit between the acrylic legs. And then we put the acrylic case around the bevel. They probably did that because maybe in some of the previous editions, the plaque might have been a little bit crowded or cramped because the acrylic has to go into the groove. So they changed it as well. So there it is. This is a very rare, very, very rare piece. It's, I think in its own way, it might be one of the most expensive or the more expensive of the 4 Darth Vader lightsabers, at least the signature versions. There's a couple on eBay right now going for around $4,500 and change. They're from Japan. I don't trust those auctions very much. There's a lot of just bad stuff. I don't know whether it's a language issue or whether just the people in Japan who are selling these don't care what they're selling. But there's some good dealers and there's some bad dealers. They advertised a Return of the Jedi signature edition lightsaber, and then you open the listing and it turned out to be just a simple limited edition Revenge of the Sith lightsaber, selling for $4,500, by the way, which is, you know, way too high. There's this lightsaber that they're selling, but it's the exact same photos. It's being sold by 3 different Japanese companies, and so you're like, you don't know whether one of them, like, or all of them are scammers, or maybe, you know, there's one legit seller and the other ones are just stealing his photos. They don't seem to care about that. There's another one where it's advertising the listing as a Darth Vader Return of the Jedi signature edition lightsaber, and then the picture actually shows a Luke Skywalker limited edition Return of the Jedi lightsaber. So it's like a mess. So I would say, you know, you have to be very careful. Buyer beware if you're getting one of these off of eBay. There's a lot of weird squirrely stuff, you know, that happens with Star Wars collectibles and Masters Replicas collectibles sometimes on eBay. Okay. But yeah, I mean, it went from people, and I remember I read some of the old threads, people were complaining, they were like, they wanted to be more weathered because they're like, oh, come on, we already have A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back, Vader lightsabers that are kind of pristine. They wanted more weathering, they wanted to be more whatever, and, you know, they were complaining again about how ugly it looked. And now, of course, it's an heirloom like everything else, and probably one of the more sought after ones because, again, of the fact that they only made, you know, 500 of these out there. So just goes to show you, you never know. So this is going to bring this review to a close. It's definitely the shortest of the, well, no, it's not the shortest of the 3. The shortest of the 3 is the Revenge of the Sith. The Revenge of the Sith Darth Vader lightsaber. Back then, I was a little bit more efficient. I didn't ramble quite as much. But of the 3 main original trilogy, this is definitely the shortest review, although it's still close to 40 minutes. So next up, when I have some time, I'm going to try to kind of set everything up, and then I will just take all 4 lightsabers out and kind of show them next to each other. I think you know, people would enjoy that. I will leave the case and the signature plaques obviously out of it, and again, just go for that. So there'll be one more video of all 4 Vader lightsabers in comparison, which is, I think, the only one on YouTube. It will be the only one on YouTube. Not very many people have that. Since I have some extra time that I can ramble, I like to talk about that. I've gone on YouTube. Wow, there isn't a lot of people on YouTube with Masters Replica stuff. There's a couple out there, but it's not, you know, it's not very common. there's definitely a few people who are very, they're like me. They're not really serious YouTubers. They got just, very small channels with a couple really good signature pieces. In case you're wondering, there's 11 signature pieces from the Master Replicas line, 11 total. And so there's one guy who I think he owns like 6 of them. His name is Alex L. And he really went all in and got quite a few. There's another guy named Boba Fett. I think he has a couple as well. But these things are expensive, man. Each one of these is like 3,000 to 4,000. I think you're gonna get a deal. I think it's like you'll get a deal. It's a good deal if you get it closer to 3 than 4. So most people can't be dropping 10 grand worth of lightsabers. So very few people have all of them. There's one guy who did have all of them, but he sold most of them. So there's just not a lot of YouTube reviews in general. I've seen, a couple of very short ones. That's from the guy, I think Equinox or whatever his name is, Chris, but he just showed like a few minutes. And again, that was just mainly just to show off the saber to his prospective buyers. There was one really nice review by Boba Fett on the Signature Edition Empire Strikes Back. Signature Edition, there's a guy named Star Wars, what's his name? It's not Star Wars Collector, it's a Star Wars Collector. He's a really, really big high-end collector, and he has he has the dual signature one, I think. But there's no one, as far as I know, there's no one on YouTube that has, episode 3, 4, 5, and 6, and 4, 5, 6 signature edition that I can think of. So I think it'll be, interesting to get all those 4 lightsabers next to each other so we can actually appreciate their differences and similarities all together at one point, right? So that's going to be upcoming. And then I'll have a shorter video that shows me actually trying to polish off and shine up my Empire Strikes Back signature plaque. I think my polish and glaze should be here in the next couple of days, try to do that. And then I'll have to decide whether I want to re-review the episode 3 Revenge of the Sith Darth Vader lightsaber. I probably won't, because I've looked at that again, and even though it's 3 years ago, I think I've said everything I really wanted to say in that video. And once that's done, that'll be it. I don't have any other lightsabers. These are the only Master Replicas lightsabers I have. It's just basically the Vader collection. I have the Signature Edition Millennium Falcon for Master Replicas with Han Solo, Harrison Ford, Han Solo signature, but I won't be able to review that for a long, long time because it's stuck in a corner of my collection room. It's super dusty. And I have all sorts of other stupid collectibles and props and figures and stuff like that around it. And it's not, fit to be properly reviewed. But maybe in the future, when my room is a little bit better managed, I will go ahead and do that. So that's, again, sort of the sneak peek at what I want to put out there in the next week or so, if I have time. So thank you again for going on this journey. I hope you learned a few interesting things about each one of these prop replicas and the history behind it. And until next time, do take care.